4 weeks into President Trump's war with Iran, the cost of the war for people like you at home continues to grow. Yesterday, an Iranian missile attack on a U.S. air base in Saudi Arabia injured at least a dozen U.S. troops. It comes amid uncertainty about a path forward in the conflict with no signs of a clear endgame. Secretary of State Marco Rubio reportedly told foreign ministers at the G7 meeting in France yesterday it could last another 2 to 4 weeks. The administration is also reportedly considering dramatically escalating the number of ground troops in the region. The Wall Street Journal reports the Pentagon is looking at sending an additional 10,000 ground troops to the Middle East, although it's unclear where those forces would go or what they would be doing. In the meantime, President Trump seems to have lost focus on his war that he claims the U.S. has already won. A senior White House official told MS Now's Jake Traylor, quote, "It's part of Trump just wanting to declare victory and move on. Trump is getting a little bored with Iran." The official added, not that he regrets it or something, he's just bored and wants to move on. Joining us now, Mark Harlan, former Assistant Secretary of Defense for Strategy, Plans, and Capabilities for President Biden. She's a professor at Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies, and a perfect person to have this conversation with. So thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
So you have the Pentagon simultaneously preparing kind of a final blow is what is out there, and these options that include ground forces, maybe seizing Kharg Island, while the president is at least, if not saying he is bored, his aides are picking up that he is bored and wants to move on. How does a military, how does the Department of Defense plan around a commander-in-chief who gets so bored with a war that he began just 4 weeks ago?
Look, it's not so easy. The Pentagon has a real culture of planning. There's no shortage of plans on the shelf and war games that occur for all of these kinds of things. But right now, there's this interesting tension. The Pentagon's talking about a massive blow, but if that involves ground troops, you are not seeing this conflict end anytime soon.
How do ground troops change everything? Because I think it is really important. I'm a military brat. So when I hear ground troops, I don't think like just these random people that get sent over. I think of mom, dads, aunts, uncles, sisters, brothers who get put on planes and sent over with rules of engagement to do something. How does that change everything in this war if we put ground troops there?
Absolutely. Look, you're a whole lot less worried about casualties when you're fighting Iran if you're doing it from the air, if you're doing it from the water. When you are sending in ground troops, you have to think that there's going to be a lot more casualties. There's going to be a long sustainment train. You just see this, frankly, getting dragged out. It's not entirely clear what these ground troops would do. They might look at taking a couple of these islands that contain oil infrastructure. Taking those will be hard. Holding them would actually be even tougher.
Well, let's actually stay on this topic because obviously this 15-point proposal was transmitted to Iranian negotiators via Pakistani mediators this week. We still don't, though, have the full picture of what that 15-point plan is. The administration is not circulating it. It is being very closely held. But we do know some of the broad parameters. No nuclear enrichment, no nuclear weapons, a reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, although unclear whether Iran would have full sovereignty of that. Also limits on missile capabilities. Some of these objectives, I'm wondering, do you think they can be accomplished without ground troops? Because let's actually listen to Marco Rubio quickly, who said this week that the U.S. can achieve objectives without any ground troops.
We've been as clear as you can possibly be from the very first night of what the objectives of this mission are. We're going to destroy their factories that make missiles and rockets and drones. We're going to destroy their Navy. We're going to destroy their Air Force. And we are going to significantly destroy their missile launchers so they can never hide behind these things to get a nuclear weapon. We are achieving all those objectives. We are ahead of schedule on most of them. And we can achieve them without any ground troops.
Is that true? Can he achieve these things without any ground troops?
Look, it seems really optimistic. There's even more to the plan than you started, right? No support to terrorist groups, for example, like Hezbollah or Hamas. This plan is all the butterflies and unicorns that the United States would ever want. And frankly, the Iranian regime hasn't been brought to its knees, so it's hard to see why they'd be willing to give so much up right now.
Well, and it's not just all of the butterflies and bees. It's actually, there's now more conditions that the U.S. seems to be negotiating on since the start of the war, because Iran seems to have more leverage than they did prior to the collapse of diplomatic conversations that were going on a month ago. Is that right?
It is. Look, no one should be surprised that the Strait of Hormuz has popped up as such a center of gravity in this conflict. Unfortunately, the Trump administration seems to have been a bit surprised. They didn't do things that they could have to prepare for that. But nevertheless, that is now what the Iranians are focused on. We are all feeling that at, when we go fill up our cars for gas. And the inconvenient part here is it gives the Iranians a bunch of leverage, and it actually distracts from what the U.S. goal had been from the beginning, which is to collapse this regime.
Mara, you had two things we were talking before about that were like ways in which where you would know things were going well or things were going badly. Will you talk about these two different things? One the Trump administration wanted, and one was this outside element.
Yeah, absolutely. So the two things that I've been looking at since this war started, one is who leaves the regime? Who's a defector who takes their weapons and goes home, or maybe even turns it against the regime? I have not seen much evidence at all of that. The other thing is, what about the Houthis? You remember the Houthis did, unfortunately, a pretty masterful job closing the Strait of Hormuz from closing the Red Sea from about end of 23 to much of 2025. Unfortunately, it looks like while we were sleeping last night, they decided to get involved and started firing ballistic missiles at Israel.
We, as a country, this administration may want to end the war very quickly, but Iran also gets a vote.
It turns out
this war is ended.
That was the question I wanted to ask this week in the White House briefing, if the president believes he can unilaterally declare the end of this. But
well, you'll be back
maybe
next week,
time.
girl.
Thank you so much for breaking that all down for us. We really appreciate it.